Over the weekend, I was in New York City for the 2022 New York Asian Film Festival. It was the 20th anniversary of an event that celebrates the latest and greatest of Asian cinema, which includes films from South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, the Philippines, and China, to name a few places. If you're a fan of Asian cinema, I would highly recommend checking it out. This year, it saw the US premiere of Shin Ultraman, and the demand for it was insane.
We were able to premiere Shin Ultraman, the new Ultraman. And, it sold out within an hour. We're working on trying to get another show, right?
Yeah. We're having another show. We didn't even announce it, but it's already sold, halfway sold or something.
So, was it worth the wait? Well, if no one else did, this crowd thought so.
I really enjoyed it. It's been a long time coming for me. I don't know, it was amazing. It was better than I expected. There were so many callbacks to the original show that it made me a little bit emotional.
Yeah, as an original Ultraman fan, it was so nice seeing all the passion poured into the film, all the references, nods, the classic show. It was perfect. I loved it.
So did I, but more on that another time. Oh yeah, there's Shinji Higuchi, famed director and special effects wizard involved with a number of iconic properties over the past few decades. Most recently, and relevant to our interest, he directed Shin Ultraman, and the kind folks running the festival gave me an opportunity to meet with him, and producer Tomoya Nishino, a young, relatively new producer, as well as a lifelong fan of the Ultra series. And without further ado, here are highlights from my interview with a few of the men behind Shin Ultraman. How did you balance paying homage to the past while also doing something new?
So, in terms of the screenplay, Mr. Anno was the one who wrote the screenplay. He actually is a person who has a very strong respect for the original Ultraman. In terms of myself, of course, I respect the original, but at the same time, I was more interested in how to incorporate new aspects, or how to carry out the new version of Ultraman. So I think that maybe the balance was somehow the conflicts between myself and Mr. Anno, or the difference in terms of how we approached it. We found a balance there.
How close is the final film to what you initially envisioned?
Actually, because of COVID, it was quite a long period during which filming and carrying out the film took place, so I can't really even recall my original idea of what the film would be.
As a veteran of the anime industry, did your experience in that field have any major influence on how you approached Ultraman? A quick note to add here. Mr. Higuchi first clarified that he has a lot of experience in both live action and anime. Then he added,
"The reason I gave you the background is that when I talk about animation, most of the anime I worked on was helping Mr. Anno. We did a lot of projects together. Over the course of a long period of time, we did anime, but we really wanted to do Ultraman. This is something that we had been wanting to do for a while. Between the both of us, we really are a fan of old-fashioned special effects. This is something that both he and I like. Starting with Shin Godzilla though, the last film we made together, I think this may have been the first time we were able to make the kind of film we really wanted to. Even though we really wanted to make this kind of film with special effects, we didn't have the necessary money or career experience that was necessary for it. So, I think that we were doing special effects with anime sort of as a stock-up measure, until we could make the film we really wanted to."
What do you look for, or who do you look to for inspiration? Are you familiar with Akioji Soji, and did his works have any influence on Shin Ultraman?
So, in terms of making the original, there was a long series of directors who made different versions of Ultraman, and they were all in their 30s. And this is the time when they had very little film experience. They had experience making dramas for TV, but not that much in film. But it really was their strong desire, as well as their youth, that enabled them to make these films. And I think that really is the appeal of Ultraman, that it originated from this sort of directorial style. Speaking for myself, I'm not that young, but I tried to recreate that youth or that feeling of youngness that accompanied all those other directors, especially the director that you mentioned. He was like 32 or 33 when he made the film, so very young.
How would you describe your mindset or approach to the aliens featured in Shin Ultraman? And why wasn't Baltan included? What did he lack in comparison to the aliens that made the cut?
So in regards to the first part of your question, in terms of previous versions of Ultraman on TV, how the story played out, I think it was a bit more simplistic or easy to understand how it was characterized. Essentially, the alien invading, or whoever was coming, they were doing bad things. They were trying to take over the Earth or to do something else. It wasn't a very smart way of going about it. So I actually tried to approach it differently, where the aliens or people who were coming were smartly deceiving humans in terms of achieving their purpose. So, in terms of Baltan, the famous character who appears in most of the Ultraman films, previous versions, we did our best to link characters that appeared in our film with characters from the original story. This is something that was very important to us, but we're doing a new arrangement of the story. So within that, we really want to make sure that the aliens who appeared in our story match the original in terms of their personality, their behavior, their motivation, things like that. The reason we didn't include Bolton is that no matter how you look at it, he seemed like more of a pathetic character. He was almost someone that you would feel bad for. He wasn't someone who was just purely evil. He had different motivations for doing what he did, so we felt bad. He was seen as kind of like a pathetic character.
People really loved your special effects in the Gamera films back in the 90s. So what motivated the shift away from practical effects and more to computer-generated effects nowadays?
So, it was actually over the course of the 3 Gamera films, that is when the shift took place. For the first film, there really was only a very small amount of 3D CG that was used. Over the course of 5 years of making the Gamera films, this actually began to change in terms of what we were using. We wanted to do something closer to Hollywood, or what's seen in Hollywood films, to show off how amazing Japanese special effects are. So gradually over time, we started moving even more quickly to proactively use the 3D CG effects. Within the course of the first, second, and third Gamera films, the proportion of the practical special effects and the digital special effects completely switched.
I read that you really wanted to use the iPhone in filming Shin Ultraman. What appealed to you about the iPhone, and what do you believe it brought to the table for Shin Ultraman?
As I'm showing you, it's really the fact that it's so very thin. That's the number one reason. As a camera, it really has almost no depth. It's just like a board. So, you can really put it anywhere or even within, let's say, a car. In this very narrow space, you're able to put it there. If we're dealing with the typical film camera, it's really hard to find the placement for it. You have to move the glass, you have to cut the body, something along those lines. Well, because the iPhone is thin enough, you don't have to worry about those kinds of things. It's hard to actually fix it or get it in position where it stays. But it can get into really tight spaces, and as a result, you can take all the angles you want.
And those were the highlights from my interview with the director and one of the producers of Shin Ultraman. But if you've seen Shin Ultraman, what did you think of it? Also, were you at the film festival? How was your experience? And once again, I would like to thank the fine folks of the New York Asian Film Festival for giving me the chance to speak with Mr. Higuchi and Mr. Nishino. It was a blast. And as always, thanks for watching, and I hope you join us again next time.